Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the oh-so-beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so very honored that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to write books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show. Let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have two wonderful guests for you today. Andrew Hackett will be joining us to celebrate Ollie the Acorn and the mighty idea. And a little bit later on, we'll be welcoming Irma Prosser, who'll be celebrating I Miss the Baby.
You've heard the whispers. You've seen it on TV. You may have even seen the movie. Now it's time to bring Dungeons and Dragons directly to you with D&D for Hire!
More than just a game, D&D lets you step into the role of a hero you create and guide them on fantastical adventures with your friends. Perfect for beginners and experts alike, D&D for Hire is sure to delight and entertain your kids for weeks on end.
Such a fun game. There are endless possibilities. There's so many things that you can do. It's so much fun.
Our son Eli loves D&D. It's like his favorite thing to do all week.
I was like 15 when I joined. I'm 21 now. There are people who are in our party, really learn to come out of their shells.
Whether you're near or far, whether you're looking for a birthday party or a campaign to keep you adventuring for years to come, D&D for Hire has you covered. Learn more at dndforhire.com. That's dndforhire.com. D&D for Hire, bringing the adventure to you. D&D for Hire runs games digitally over Zoom or in person in select areas.
This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by The Missing Red Envelopes, a fun middle grade novel by our friend Yobi Q. As the Lunar New Year approaches, two Asian American girls from New York City eagerly anticipate the festive celebrations, from watching the vibrant parade to indulging in delicious Asian cuisine and cherishing precious family moments. The highlight of the occasion is receiving lucky red envelopes filled with surprises from their relatives. However, excitement turns to mystery when Weena realizes she's lost all of the red envelopes. What in the world will they do? Encourage readers to dive into the story, celebrate cultural diversity, and enjoy a heartwarming adventure with The Missing Red Envelopes by our friend Yobi Q. Are you looking for a new book to add to your family library? Well, I have great news for you. Lynn Podrat, the award-winning author of Listen to Me, How My Down Syndrome Brother Saved My Life, has once again shared with us her family and a brand new book. It's called My Sister Wants an Elephant. Randy's sister wants a what? And his mom isn't flat out saying no? My Sister Wants an Elephant is a true story of two siblings who team up together to convince their mother to let them own a couple of wild animals as pets, and a mom who just might be persuaded. This book is full of humor and fun. It's a good lesson in not giving up on your dreams, no matter how truly wild they may be. Get your copy today. My Sister Wants an Elephant by Lynn Podrat. Join us right now from beautiful Central Massachusetts. Our guest is here today to celebrate not one, not two, but three amazing children's books that are coming out this spring. Please welcome to the show, Andrew Hackett. Hey, Andrew, how's it going?
It's going wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you on. Like I said, you have a book coming out in April, May, and June from three different publishers, and
April and then 2 in May.
April and then 2 in May. Wow.
Cram it all in there.
Wow. That is incredible. Well, I definitely want to talk to you about how that feels and all of that, but let's Let's talk about the books. One of the titles that really caught my eye was Ollie the Acorn and the Mighty Idea. Can you tell us about Ollie, please?
Absolutely. So Ollie, his full name is Ollie Alexander Kanderstein, and he is a boy with a name bigger than he is. And all Ollie desperately wants is to deal with his bully next door. And we learn a little bit later in the book that his bully is harboring some jealousy. But Ollie gets the idea that if only he could be bigger, if only he could be as mighty as an oak tree. And when an acorn happens to plop down on his head, he gets just the idea he needs. And then we go through a little bit of a old lady who swallowed a fly. And so he eats the acorn, he waits, he rumbles, nothing. And so he thinks, what else do I need? And he guzzles a bunch of water, and he waits, and he rumbles, and he goes through the process of the life cycle or the needs of a plant, so to speak, until he has a tremendous transformation where he actually becomes a tree and is able to deal with his bully. Not quite with the results he was anticipating.
Wow. Well, that's really...
It's out there.
That is out there. I love that. I love that. So I know the books are in pre-order right now, but you've obviously had beta readers and editors. Anybody say to you, can't write this book, kids are going to be swallowing acorns all over the place?
Yes, that was actually a concern from the editor. And before we get to that, I desperately tried in the drafting phase not to have him eat his bully. I just thought all those things, like, I can't do this. I'm a teacher. Like, this is bad role model. And I one day was finally saying to my wife, I just can't make this come together. And she said, well, you know what needs to happen. I was like, no, I can't do that. She said, no, you know what needs to happen. And so that is where actually going there with him eating his bully came from. But my editor had some concerns that, you know, we're going to be encouraging children to be ingesting things we don't want. So there is back matter, nonfiction back matter at the end called Digesting Ollie's Eating Antics, where we look at each of the things he eats and why we can't do what he did, but also learn some nonfiction facts about those items as well.
And you know, there are definitely, the same thing I used to hear when I watched The Three Stooges when I was a kid. And people were like, oh, you're going to poke someone's eye out and hit him, whatever. And none of us did that. And, you know, I'm going to sound cruel, but, you know, Darwin, I don't want to go there. But I don't think you have to be worried about most kids. Obviously, there'll be maybe some kids, but that's why we read books with our kids so that we can talk about these things.
Absolutely. And I think another part of it, too, is curating that imagination in kids of yes, we can have realistic fiction, we can have nonfiction, but we also need those books that are magically absurd and go into these fantastical things that can't happen in real life, right? And that's what captivates kids' imaginations, and that's what encourages them to explore what's of interest to them and to write creatively and to read books in various genres. So doing my part to add to the absurdity a little bit.
Well, we encourage everybody to add to the absurdity of the world and of life because it is beautiful. And I think another one of your books that are coming out will do just that. It's certainly, the cover caught my eye. Curly Locks and the 3 Hairs. I could use 3 extra hairs myself here.
Yes, Curly Locks is dedicated to my daughter. We have 3 kids. The middle one is our daughter, and she, curly girl, hated her hair when she was younger, and this is kind of what it brought about. So this idea that this young girl, Curly Locks, picture day is forthcoming, and she is ready to quit her curls and find the just right do that she's always wanted. And so it's a fractured fairy tale. It follows along with Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, but instead we have a hair salon run by the 3 Hairs. And so she, I wouldn't say breaks in, but, you know, finds her way in. and takes her hair into her own hands. So we have, again, some craziness, some absurdity with different colored dyes and styles, and really bringing it to the point of this craziness she goes in that the curly hair is what, is just right for her, but she goes through a lot to get there.
I love it, and I love the idea of kind of sneaking in kind of sort of an unauthorized visit to the hair salon. Was that maybe inspired by your years of living in the second largest city in New England?
I'm going to say the door was ajar. She didn't break in. It was just,
you don't have to explain it to me. I grew up in Boston. I get it. No problem at all. I love the you just used the word absurd. These are really neat, fun, out there ideas. And you mentioned that you're a teacher. Is it, are these just kind of thoughts that are running through your head as you're teaching the young ones just to kind of keep yourself sane during the day?
I will say, so I teach second grade, and I've been teaching second grade for 17 years. So 7 and 8-year-olds, and then I had my own 3 young kids at the time I was writing most of these. It is definitely a wonderful headspace to be in if you're trying to create picture books. You are with your audience. They don't think any of your ideas are ridiculous. Nobody's shooting you down on any idea. So yeah, I would say my career as an educator has absolutely played a part in this, and most of it has come from teaching young kids writing. Through modeling my own writing to teach them is where a lot of these ideas come from. And as we mentioned a little bit before, so much, I feel like too young kids start to shoot down their own imagination of feeling we have to grow up a little bit more, or this is too childish. And so I probably couldn't teach in a more childish way, that especially Ollie and Curly Locks kind of exemplify my interactions with kids. And it's those interactions put on a page with silliness and puns and just a whole lot of fun. Yeah. Because there's plenty of time to grow up and have less fun. So as much as I can infuse that fun and kind of a disposition of silliness, I want to do that for kids because that's what we need. Plenty of time to be serious later.
And I am really hoping that spending time reading with our kids, especially reading books like Ollie and Curly Locks, are going to encourage our kids to maybe not feel a need to grow up and be all that serious and to keep having fun even when they get to be old like me.
Absolutely. And I think, too, that within both stories, and we'll talk about the third one as well, but all three, they deal with social emotional things. There's learning that can happen there amongst the silliness. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason, especially with these first 2 books, that I love the silliness is humor is a buy-in. Humor is a way to get those students to want to read and reread, and that's when trying to get your child to go to sleep, and they say, oh, just one more time. So if you can get books that have that impact on a child, so much learning can come from that. Just in their own development of skills, but also within the content of conversation that can happen from what's going on in the story.
Well, I got to share this with you. Now, this happened to me back before you were teaching, certainly back in 1989. I created a video, a disabilities awareness video, and it featured my clown character and magic and dancing and all sorts of great stuff. And it had a very diverse cast. And I sent it around. It was funded by a grant from the wonderful Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we sent it around, and I thought, I'll send it to this very prestigious public school system, and if they accept it, it will be easy. Everybody else will just jump on board. And so I sent it, and I got a note back from the people, and they said, we love the message. Perfect. And it's very clear the kids get the message. It's very, very clear. And it just captivates the kids' attention. But we're not going to use it because it's too much fun. and there was nothing I could say. I had nothing to. I couldn't answer it, and it's always baffled me that there is, in certain places in education, there's this idea that nope, sorry, fun and learning just can't happen together, and I am a firm disbeliever in that idea.
Yes, I am firmly in the camp of students having fun. The only thing that does is add to engagement, and if we have increased engagement, we're going to have increased learning. I try my best to create an environment where students want to come to school, right? If they're there and they're happy, they social emotionally are in a much better place to receive new information and to be able to put the focus and effort into applying that new information. So I'm with you. Yeah. The more fun we can have, the better for everybody.
Yeah. So that brings us to the third book. And again, 3 books and 2 months in the spring. This is amazing. Hope and the Sea. This seems I don't know if it was the illustrations, but it seems a little bit less absurd.
Yes,
I don't know if I said that right.
It is. It is definitely a different tone than the other two. Hope in the Sea is about a young girl named Hope who finds herself at the seashore. And it's not unspecified as to why, but she's feeling down. She's feeling lonely. And then we have the second character, which is the sea personified, who really does the work of bringing Hope out of her shell and helping her. I relate it to when you have a child who is grumpy, they're upset, and they want to be grumpy. They want to be stuck in that feeling. That's a little bit how Hope is feeling at the beginning, and through some playful interactions, the sea is able to kind of get her out of that into a more playful spirit, and help her find some friendship with other children who are there at the beach. Definitely a very different tone, as I was saying. This one, even in the writing style, is more lyrically, more poetically written. And yet all 3 stories have this kind of unifying theme of children accepting themselves, accepting their feelings towards themselves or the situations they find themselves in. This one is special to me because as much as I'm in Central Mass now, I grew up in Rhode Island, and going to the beach was that was childhood. So to be able to bring in that aspect as a character, not just as a setting, was really meaningful. And to have a book that more directly approaches some of these bigger feelings kids can have. So I'm super proud of it and really excited for kids to get their hands on it.
Well, I love the idea of helping kids accept and, as I would say, be cool with who they are.
Absolutely.
It's really hard because a lot of those kids grow up to be adults who aren't cool with who they are, and they're like wicked sad, man. And it's depressing to see them. I feel bad for them.
Yep. And this is, I will talk to other people at times too about how the power of picture books, right? Not just for our children. That oftentimes the parent doing the reading or the teacher, that they're getting as many lessons or as much out of these books as possible, because we have that inner child that not everything was always great for. So sometimes these books can be cathartic for the adults involved as well.
Yeah. That's one of the things I don't think I've said it quite plainly, and I hope I can get it out in English, but I hope when parents are reading with their kids, they're thinking about engaging their kids and reading it with energy and fun and all that other stuff. But I'm also hope that they take the time. Maybe it's the 15th time they read the book or the 30th time they read the book, but one of those times they just read it for themselves. But have the kid with you, but read it for yourself so that you can get into the story. And I think these books are definitely, if you're not already doing that, maybe these are the 3 books you start doing it with.
Yeah, I hope so. And I want to, I'm realizing now that I left off one of the most important parts, and that is the amazing illustrators I had the chance to work with. So for Ollie the Acorn and the Mighty Idea, Kaz Witness was the illustrator, and she's absolutely incredible. And she's the author-illustrator of many of her own books, including Bitsy Bat, School Star, along with others. She has some other books coming out this year. For Curly Locks, Jan Dolby was the illustrator. And Curly Locks is in a series, a modern fairy tale series, with 3 different authors. And Jan is the illustrator for all 3. And then for Hope in the Sea, Svetla Radovoeva was the illustrator, and she just brought this amazing watercolor style to the setting that is Hope. And so what I'm always fascinated by is, we have such little say as authors oftentimes of who our illustrators are. And I've had the pleasure of working with 3, and each one of them is the perfect fit for the book that they illustrated. Yeah. So I give, those editors and art directors and the people making these pairings so much credit, because I think if each of these books had a different illustrator, they wouldn't be the same book. Mm-hmm. Each of those women brought so much to it. I'm just very grateful to work with people who are so talented in an area that I just have so little talent.
One of the things I wanted to ask you was that difficult, being able, we've talked to a lot of first-time authors, and I've talked to authors off the show who've told me that they refuse to sell their books to a publisher because they want control over the art. And I say, you're so silly. But I know it can be difficult, especially for first-time authors. And here you are kind of dealing that and handing off your control over these stories, 3 stories around the same time. Was that a challenge for you?
It wasn't, but I think that's just because I knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. I knew enough of the industry ahead of time to know that that's where I was going to land with it. And for me, it was always the goal of, I just wanted to get one book made, right? That was the life goal. And for me, and it can be different for each person, for me, that success was through traditional publishing. It was a little easier with Ollie being the first book that I had some say in recommending illustrators to the publisher. And Kaz was one of my recommendations. And when it came down to it, they told me to rank, my top, order, and they'd reach out because they thought everyone would do a wonderful job. And Kaz was the number 1 pick, and then she signed on.
Awesome. So
for that one, it was a little easier because this is someone I was putting forth, and I had seen her work and was so enthralled by it. And then so for the others, where Curly Locks is part of a series, Jan was already signed on. So again, I had an inkling of what was forthcoming. The third one, Hope, was probably the book I had the least kind of hand in any of it or heads up of what was happening. And Svetla just did the most amazing job. So I will always go back to kind of deferring to those editors and art directors that they're in that role for a reason. I do know Curly Locks was one of the first books I drafted when I decided to take writing seriously. And at the time it was a picture book, so now it's kind of more of an early reader format. And in writing it, I'm an extremely visual person. I can see the whole book play out like a movie. So there was this step in between of having to make peace with that and separate my expectations. But like I said, I couldn't be more thrilled with how all 3 books turned out.
Yeah. Well, speaking of thrilled, I'm wondering, are you going to ask parents to come in and volunteer and help clean up your classroom after your kids see your books for the first time? Because I know their minds are going to explode. There's just going to be little kid brains all over your classroom.
It is. Well, and this goes to the speed of publishing, which I'm sure you've had plenty of guests talk about. That I have students who are in fifth,
college,
probably, well, yeah. But at the time that I signed the contract for Ollie, or when I was drafting it, those students are 5th or 6th grade now. So it's not just one group of students I have to deal with and their excitement. I'm going to have a whole school that's just so thrilled. And in that way, I'm just really, really fortunate to have this opportunity to celebrate it with the audience I want to celebrate it with. Right, family and friends and my writing friends, everyone is so happy. But to be able to have a large audience of children who are invested in my success in this way and are going to be so thrilled, it's probably going to be a hefty cleanup.
And that's the kind of the good cleanup. You know, it's not like Taco Tuesday and the poor custodian has to clean up after that. But it's going to be a joyful celebration. Andrew, I don't want to jinx you or anything, but do we have books coming out in the fall or the winter?
Not right now. Well, I should backpedal a little bit. I do have a short story being published in, I believe it's July, a middle grade haunted story that will be in an anthology called The Haunted States of America, where they chose one author from each state and the U.S. territories to contribute a piece based on some kind of haunted story or lore that exists within their states. So I was fortunate enough to be chosen for that. So that will be coming out in July with Godwin Books. And then other than that, we're on submission.
Okay.
We're fingers crossed for more to be forthcoming. I look at it right now with 3 coming out. I've got some time to celebrate and enjoy these successes, and then hopefully there'll be more to come.
Awesome. Well, in the meantime, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about these 3 great books, and also where they can go to be the first to find out what's new coming from you. So where should they check it out?
Absolutely. So going to my website, andrewhackett.com, is going to be the place to find out all about the books. All pre-order links are there as well. If anyone is hoping for signed copies, my local independent bookseller, Typool Bookshop in Worcester, Massachusetts, I'm doing all signed pre-orders through them. And then social media-wise, I am at Andrew C. Hackett on all platforms, and love to interact and meet new people, teachers, librarians, parents, and just be able to share what's happening in my writing life.
That is awesome. We've had a really fun time speaking to the author of Ollie the Acorn and the Mighty Idea. In other books, our guest has been Andrew Hackett. Andrew, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by And the Trees Talk Back, written and illustrated by Frederick J. Burns, a gem in children's literature. And the Trees Talk Back is an enchanting and magical story about a young girl named Amanda who discovers she can talk to trees. The magical adventure and whimsical tree illustrations will delight adults and children of all ages and will inspire kindness, empathy, caring, and courage to stand against evil and give them a new appreciation of the trees that surround us. I love this book. It's a great way to inspire kids to see those who are different and who've been overlooked, and to understand that we can all be wonderful friends and that we're all part of a beautiful human family. Get your copy today. And The Trees Talk Back by Frederick J. Burns. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Lucas and the Game of Chance, a thrilling middle grade novel written by Anthony L. Mena. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. While Lucas is playing his flute at the seawall one day, he befriends a mysterious talking dancing snake that rewards him with fortune and favor. Some years later, tempted by greed and pride, Lucas loses all of his riches and his family. He now must set off on a treacherous journey through a frightening forest filled with suspense and strange creatures. To find Destiny, her son, Ilion, the sun, her daughter, Luna, the moon. These celestial guardians will surely allow him to reverse his misfortune, restore his honor, and win back all that he loves and treasures. Won't they? This is a reimagined Greek folk tale, Lucas in the Game of Chance. It's illuminated with dramatic and evocative pen and ink drawings that provide an ideal backdrop to the dark intrigue that fills this haunting story of human struggle, courage, and resilience. You and your kids are going to love it. Lucas and the Game of Chance by Anthony Almana. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Hey, quick question. Are you raising a reader? Are you ready to embark on a journey of imagination and adventure with your family? Then look no further than Dear Fam, the ultimate destination for family reading fun. Join the Dear Fam movement and unlock your child's love for reading with Dear Fam, the reading journal tracking app. Develop critical thinking skills. Set up reading goals with your child as they earn reading badges. Get notified when your child shares their reading journals. Share with family, friends, and teachers. Start your family's next reading adventure today with Dear Fam. That's spelled DEARFAM, where reading together means bonding forever. Dear Fam, now available on the App Store and at Google Play. Dear Fam. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Maryland. Our guest is here today to celebrate her wonderful book. It's called I Miss the Baby. Please welcome to the show the author, Irma Prosser. Irma, how are you?
I am well, thank you. How are you?
I am wonderful. I didn't want to try to give the whole subtitle of I Miss the Baby because I think I Miss the Baby is pretty self-explanatory, but this book delves into how we can support our kids as they go through the grief process when the baby is gone.
Correct. Yep. And it's a very the text and the images are very general for either miscarriage, stillbirth, even infant loss, or SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. They all kind of fall under that category, no matter the age of gestation for the child or the baby.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's thankfully we never experienced in losing an infant, but we did lose a child through miscarriage, and it was a devastating experience. And it was, we didn't have, our other kids hadn't been born yet. I've shared here in the podcast what made it most difficult, I think, or one of the things that added to the difficulty were all the well-meaning people who said, well, it's probably a good thing it happened because, who knows? And I'm like, that's really not helping even a little bit. So
You're exactly right. And first, I just want to say I'm sorry that that's occurred to you, and also that your support was just really not there at the time that you really needed that support. And unfortunately, that's the story that just keeps going round and round, which is, we had this traumatic event happen and our community didn't support us. We also ourselves don't know how to react. And then that's kind of where that book was born, was our children also don't know how to react. I have two children, living children, that are early elementary age, and I went through 3 miscarriages, at various stages. And my children were also different ages at the time. I had a couple before I had any children, and then one in between my children. And even at that age, even as they've been growing up, they've asked questions, and I've tried to be very honest with them. And something that I put into the book is the text in the book seems so simple, but it's because I want to give vocabulary to children about how to express their emotions and their feelings when they're going through something that's difficult. And to be quite honest, I also put the simple text in for the parents, or those that are suffering, because sometimes the only words we can mutter are 3 words or 4 words in the midst of our grief. And that this language, even though it seems so simple, is actually pretty universal. For example, some of the pages say, sometimes I'm sad. Sometimes I forget. And we can have such heavy emotions that are attached to those simple words. Like, I'm sad, but I still have to go on. Or I forgot that this was the anniversary. Am I a bad mom? Am I a bad parent because I forgot? Our children are going through the same types of processes. And so I wanted to give that language out so we can grieve together as a family.
Yeah. Well, I am certainly sorry for your losses. As you were speaking, I'm remembering when my son was 2 and we were expecting my daughter. And my son was so excited. And even though he was 2, he knew that there was a brother or sister on the way. And he was looking forward to it. And he was excited about it. And he would have been absolutely devastated had something happened.
Yes. And I feel like sometimes adults forget that children feel that, they feel the emotions that we feel, but they also have that excitement during a pregnancy or that excitement during that newborn stage, or even excitement if a baby is born preterm and they're waiting to meet the baby because the baby's at the hospital or in the NICU. There's an excitement there, or even feeling scared. And that's actually some of the first few pages in my book is saying I was feeling so many things. And my wonderful illustrator who has also suffered a loss, and we've connected that way. She went out of her way to make sure that those varied emotions were part of that beginning of the book, because a child can feel, oh, you know what, I don't have to worry about another baby right now, and that can also be triggering for the child or for the caregiver as well. And kind of normalize and destigmatize what those emotions are for the children themselves, because you're right, even as young as 2 and then older, they feel it. They know.
Yeah. Did you set out on this journey? Obviously you wanted to help and give parents and kids a resource, but was part of the motivation kind of therapeutic for you to kind of help you process some feelings?
I would 100% yes, agree with that. Yep. This was after many of my miscarriage. I've always been a writer. I was a stand-up comedian. I've done improv comedy. I'm an entertainer of sorts. Maybe that's why I'm a teacher. And so I do a lot of poetry, or free verse type of writing. And so this was kind of after one of my miscarriages, I wrote the very rough edges of this book. And it was there just waiting along with many other of my writings. And so, after some other infertility trials that we had, it became, no, I want to share this. I know that there are other families who need the support. And I say this often, especially on my social media, or when I'm speaking with other families, is that it's a bittersweet to be able to get a book out and to know that I'm, as an author, I'm getting books out to families, but it hurts me to know that I have to get a book out, that there's a family who now needs one, that there's a child who needs to hear these words. And so, every single book, every single time, I see a sale, or every time I'm at an event or wherever I'm at and I know that a book is out, I am both thinking of that person and that family, that child, and also glad that they have something to support them. It's such a strange, bittersweet moment every single time.
I'm sure, and especially, as you mentioned that, and I'm picturing being at a live event, and I've certainly done thousands and thousands of shows where I've met people and afterwards, and there have been times when people have come up and said, wow, that you really, I needed that. My grandmother died, my mother did, whatever it was. But to think every time you're selling a book at a farmer's market or a book fair or a bookstore, you're assuming that, wow, these folks just experienced this.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly the thought I have every time. But one of the wonderful things is when I'm at an event, just the families that know that I can be a safe person, that they come up to me even with their children and they say, I suffered through this. I hear about their children's names if they've decided to name that baby. I hear about their stories if they had pregnancy cravings, all that, or all those little things that I think most of society doesn't feel comfortable hearing about. And I take that with a lot of humility that I can be someone to support that family and to hear their story. And the same thing happens. I go out of my way to donate books to hospitals, OBGYN offices, just different organizations, nonprofits. And I try to personalize them because it's something that I wish I had every time that I had a loss, is just a little bit of a heartfelt moment. And I know that I will probably not meet every single individual that gets something out of my book. But I know that I hope I've helped them, even if just for a moment that day, as their grief ebbs and flows, for sure.
As we sit here, we talk about books being windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors. And for this book to serve as a mirror for a kid who is suffering through this, or a family that's suffering through this, it's wonderful that they're able to see themselves and process those feelings and start conversations about those feelings. I think it is just as important for a family that hasn't experienced this to sit down and read this book, or read a book like this. So, because we all know somebody who has suffered a loss like this. And I know I never want to be the person that goes up and say, well, probably a good thing, because, who knows what would have happened if the baby came to life. I don't want to be that person. I want to be somebody who is caring and empathetic and understanding what somebody is going through. Even if I'm not the person that they're going to lean on during their time of trouble, I at least want to have an understanding. And I know that both of my kids were that type of person. And so I think having a book like this in any family library would be it would be a great resource, because, again, it would be able to start that conversation, helping us and helping our kids understand that there are people going through things that we can't even imagine.
Correct. Yep. I completely agree. And I know that, that my book has landed in various libraries as a resource, just to share with children that there are families near you, that may look like you, may look different from you, that are going through this. I'm first generation American. My family's from El Salvador. And so my book is also in Spanish, and, my illustrator and I really worked very hard together to make sure that, there was a lot of representation in our books, that we saw male parental support helping a child, that we saw people of different colors and creeds in that story, because it happens to all of us. I've heard from every continent except Antarctica that this has happened to someone. Mm-hmm. And I want that to be something that we don't have to be afraid of. And I think in my very optimistic worldview, I feel like one day what I am slowly doing is chipping away at that stigma in the world. So that way there is a generation that will come up, that will grow up and speak to someone. And selfishly for my own children, because statistically they could be someone that suffers through a loss. Mm-hmm. But as well with their friends when they're adults. And so to know that they can be supportive, that they know what to say, or more importantly, what to not say, how to mm-hmm. listen. And those are all resources that are found within the book, as well as in its companion book. I do have a little activity book that also helps with children and families kind of do some activities and process, get out some kinesthetic learning. It was kind of the teacher in me going, well, how can we make the learning a little different? And so that's kind of like my dream goal. Now, will it happen? I hope it does, slowly and surely. But I agree that just that representation is completely necessary right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. You use the word stigma. I do think there are some people out there. I think I was uncomfortable sharing that, I'm kind of bummed out. I can't come in today because I'm sad, I'm grieving. And, and I think if we can help our kids grow up to let them know that, no, that this is a loss. This is something that it's okay to feel sad about. It's okay to grieve through. And no, you're not just going to dust it off and be on your way, and life isn't just going to go on. This is something that's going to stay with you and hurt for a while.
Yes, and that is completely true. And in the resources section at the back of my book, I kind of go into this a little bit because children, not just children, but we all grieve differently. My husband and I were not always on the same, grief emotion at the exact same moment. Even today, we're not, even though it's been several years since our last loss. We all go through it differently. And I do go into the resources section to let caregivers know that, it may seem like your child has forgotten, or it may seem like they're kind of happier than you expect them to be, or you may seem a little happier than you expect yourself to be, and to accept all those emotions and to understand that this is completely normal. And all of a sudden, maybe a few years later, your child will all pop out of nowhere and ask about their older sibling or their younger sibling or whatever, or their cousin or whoever it happens to be that they are trying to remember. And this is all normal. And some resources in the back to how to navigate those conversations, as well as how to navigate conversations regarding, well, are we going to have another baby? Things like that, especially that can get mixed in if there's infertility involved or if there's other situations involved that children really don't understand, but they're curious.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I think this is such an important, resource tool for a family. The illustrations on your website are beautiful and heartfelt, and I think they're appropriate for the message of the book. I'm curious. I understand that what motivated you to write this book. Now that you have a children's book out there and you're seeing that it is affecting people, are you intending to write more children's books in the future?
I am. I'm currently in the middle of my second set of books. I say books because we have some translations and some activities books with this one. But my second one is how to speak to, or how a child processes their emotions when a loved one is diagnosed with cancer. That is my next one that's coming out, because children are kind of confused. There's a lot of, well, if I give them a hug, am I going to get it? Or can I still hug that person? Can I go visit them? Why don't they have the energy to play? Things like that. And so that's my next book coming out. Hopefully in 2024. Sometimes these things take a while. So that is the next book in my series. And this is a grief series for children. Yeah. So we can start giving voices to children on how to express these emotions that as adults we have a hard time expressing ourselves.
I was going to say that cancer book. I mean, I can't tell you how many people that I'm aware of that, have received that diagnosis and suddenly their friends are gone.
Right. Right. Because they don't know how to respond, or they're afraid of too much commitment. They don't know what to say. There's a lot of parallels that go on with loss, with grief, with death. But really, we just need to be supportive as a community, and kind of practice that together, read these books, hopefully before anything happens, assuming, hopefully nothing ever does. But if it does, that we can be prepared, because that's the world we live in. Right.
And I think you're absolutely right. In addition to just helping kids have empathy, if we have these books in our home libraries and the kids are familiar with them, and just the same way we talk about spooky books, helping kids imagine how they will deal with certain situations in their life. It's safer to imagine it, through envisioning characters in a book. If we've already had conversations about grief, about loss, about illness, before anything like this happens, our kids are going to be much, much better prepared and have many more skills that they can fall back on than if we suddenly need to run out and find this book because a tragedy has occurred.
Correct. And I think as adults, as the caregivers, that also gives us permission to kind of grieve alongside our children, and have that vocabulary ready for them, because the vocabulary that we're using for ourselves very likely also helps our children grieve as well. Especially with the cancer situation, if you're also now the caregiver of this other individual, or there's so many extra responsibilities on the caregiver that I know I felt it with my losses, and as well as a caregiver for a cancer, for someone who I love who had cancer, that now I carry this as well. And so now there's more on me. And I agree, having these books just at our arsenal, being prepared for those conversations gives us one less thing to have to think about or plan for, at least at the beginning and in that moment. Of course, it's going to be difficult. There's no trauma that is like, oh, well, that was great. And so, but it does help us begin that process of grieving, and then help us to move forward, to be able to take steps forward toward whatever that goal is, especially through an empathetic lens.
Yeah. Irma, it's important for us to let people know where they can go to find out more about I Miss the Baby and find out more about you and these other resources that you're creating.
Sure. I absolutely love getting messages and contact from people on my website, which is irmaprosser.com, IRMA, then PROSSER.com, Irma with an I, not an E, or a U, or an O, and then Prosser, not processor, because I get that one too. Right there, messages, I love them. I respond. Like I said, that is just my bread and butter, is to know that I get to talk to someone and I get to support you and listen to you. I absolutely adore it. So please, I would love to hear from you.
We've had a really, really powerful time speaking to the author of I Miss the Baby. Our guest has been Irma Prosser. Irma, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Please be sure to connect with us on social media. We love connecting with our listeners on social media. Facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram and TikTok, and at Jedley Magic on Twitter. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. Listen, our YouTube channel, we're really excited about it. We have 2 spin-off projects of Reading With Your Kids, Drawing With Your Kids, and STEM is Family Fun. You can find videos for both of those spin-off projects on our YouTube page, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. And we are relaunching Drawing With Your Kids. We have brand new content that will be going up in the next week. You don't want to miss it. Go check it out. Our main youtube.com/readingwithyourkids page, there are playlists for both of those spin-off projects. You definitely want to check it out. We would also love for you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com. You can check out our blog, download our free online magazine, visit our Reading With Your Kids Certified Great Read Wall of Fame, and use the contact button that you're going to find up at the top of the page to send us a message. We would love to know what you love about the show. And we also want to know what we could be doing better. And we would especially love to hear who you would like to hear on a future episode of the show. And if you're an author, please be sure to click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to find out how you can be a guest here on the podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, it gives you the chance to tell thousands of Kidlets fans all over the world about your great children's book. And you can also learn about our effective and very affordable promotional services. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guests, Andrew Hackett and Irma Prosser. Also want to thank our sponsors. And I want to thank our team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Chris Doherty, Skylar Strauss, Nick Warner, Kyoko Ito, Kayla Newland, Kristen Barrett, Sydney Swan, Hannah Rose. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. And most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's show. And thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you on the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
Oh, yeah.